So today we're going to be eating meals of people on death row. Good evening and welcome. We're going to be dining tonight, and what we are doing is eating the meals of some of the most notorious killers on death row. From late 1989 through to 1990, 7 middle-aged white men bodies were found in Florida. The person who killed them shot them to death, took all their belongings, any cash, and including their cars. Aileen Lee Carol Wuornos was born February 29, 1956 in Michigan. Her father was convicted of molesting her shortly after her birth and in prison killed himself. Her mother abandoned her, leaving her with her grandparents. She came out shortly after saying that her grandfather also molested her and that she had sexual relations with her brother. During her early teen years, she became pregnant. She gave the child up as an infant. She had to live in the woods for a short amount of time while she was growing up. She made a living in Florida as a sex worker. One of her first murders was a man who picked her up. Aileen was actually convicted of only one of these murders, but soon after confessed about the other killings. She was put on death row, where her final meal was a black cup of coffee. Fun fact, I absolutely hate coffee, but for the sake of the video, I'm going to taste it. So, yeah, that tastes like black coffee, and it's awful. Anyone who orders a black coffee is a serial killer. But you don't need any evidence they're a serial killer. Cheers, Aileen. Her last words were, "Yes, I would like to say I'm sailing with the rock, and I'll be back like Independence Day, with Jesus June 6th, like the movie. Big mothership and all. I'll be back. I'll be back." John Wayne Gacy was born in 1942 in Chicago, Illinois. He grew up with an abusive father who was a drunk and would beat the children with a razor strap. It's kind of like a leather paddle. He would also beat John's mother. John in school was alienated from a young age due to a heart condition. He wasn't able to play with the other kids. His father said this was another failure. Growing up in his early years, John realised he was gay, and he was bullied horrendously for this. Even though John didn't have it easy growing up, he grew up to be what people thought was a great person. He did loads of events for charity. He was even pictured with the First Lady and got an S pin. This pin represented that this person was trusted by everyone locally. This person was a great person to have around. John had a different persona called Pogo the Clown, where he would do kids events. Unknown to the parents at those events, John would bring some of those boys and young men home to his house, where he would murder them. John brought 33 young boys and men home to his house, murdered them and put them in the crawl space underneath. When these boys were found, John was put on death row. While in prison, John learned how to paint. Many of these were done around his other personas, such as him dressed as the clown. One of these paintings even selling for $20,000. John's last meal was a bucket of KFC, 12 fried shrimp, a pound of strawberries, fries, and to be healthy, a Diet Coke. I think he might have picked KFC as he was a manager of 3 different locations. Before John's lethal injection, he was asked what his last words were, and he said, "Kiss my ass," with a smirk on his face. Ted Bundy, where do we start? He was born in 1946. His mother straight away wanted to disown him, didn't want anything to do with him, but his father wanted to keep him. Ted Bundy grew up thinking that his mother was a sister. That's what he was told. In interviews, he has said that he figured it out pretty quickly because of the age difference. There was like 20 years between them, and he was saying that 20 years for a sister is a bit much. Bundy confessed to killing over 36 women in the 1970s, but experts believe it may be well over 100. He was a very gruesome killer in the way he did things, and he always had patterns of the killings. He was executed in Florida's electric chair in 1989. The man always walked around with a smirk on his face, and when asked what he wanted for his last meal, he simply kind of said, I don't know, like, I'll let you guys choose. So he got the standard prison meal in Florida, which is a steak, hash browns, fried eggs, toast, jelly, orange juice and milk. Ted's last words were, I'd like to send love to my family and friends. He did this with a big smirk on his face. I think he tried to make the media portray him as a normal human being for people to feel empathy for him. When he was executed in the electric chair, he went out with the biggest grin on his face, kind of saying, well, I won in the end. During the summer of 1960, Victor Fager arrived in Dubuque, Iowa. Taking up residence in a boarding house, Victor took a phone book and began calling local physicians in alphabetical order. When he connected with Dr. Edward Bartels, he claimed that a woman was in bad need of medical attention. Bartels arrived only to be taken hostage by Victor. Victor killed Bartels with a single gunshot to the head in Illinois. He was later caught by authorities in Alabama when he was trying to sell Bartels' car. Victor tried to appeal his death sentence, but it was denied. He was hanged in Iowa in 1963. When asked what he wanted to eat, he asked for an olive with the pit still in it. Why did he ask for this? Well, he said to the guards that he hoped an olive tree would sprout out of his body after he was dead, and it would show a sign of peace. I'm now going to attempt a bite of an olive. I've never had one of these, so no. When he was hanged, they actually found the olive still in his jacket pocket. His last words were, I sure hope I'm the last one to be executed in Iowa, but it's kind of too much to hope for. James Edward Smith was a tarot card reader, a taxi driver, and he also claimed to be a voodoo priest. On March 7th, 1983, James attempted to rob the Union Life Insurance Company in the International Trade Center in Houston, Texas. He put on a mask and walked up to Deborah Wilson at the cashier window. When she saw the gun in James's hand, she immediately tried to find something to hide behind. The nearest thing to her was a filing cabinet. The district manager of the place put some money in a trash can and passed it over to James. He then tried to walk over to Deborah to comfort her, but James didn't allow that. James fired a warning shot at the man, which hit him. The man decided to try and run for his life, but James shot him again in the chest, killing him. His mother told the court that he practiced voodoo, black magic and witchcraft, and that he had also confessed to killing 6 other people, including the decapitation of a child, which was performed for a ritual. These claims were never proven, but he did get put on death row for the murder he was convicted of. For his last meal, James asked for some Rotunda dirt. He told the prison officials that he wanted to use it for a ritual. Considering that this wasn't on the approved list of foods by the prison, he was just given some yogurt. In his final statement, Smith said, I myself did not kill anyone, but I go to my death without begging for my life. I will not humiliate myself. I will let no man break me. He then smiled, winked and said, Hare Krishna. On the 19th of April 1995, America had seen one of the worst terrorist attacks for a long time. Timothy McVeigh drove a truck full of explosives into downtown Oklahoma into a federal office building, killing 168 people, 19 of these being children. He also harmed hundreds of others that were in and around the building. People that were affected by this incident were allowed to view McVeigh's death through a window. McVeigh was killed through the lethal injection, where 3 chemicals are injected into his bloodstream. Mr. Larry Witcher, whose brother was killed in the bombing, said it was a totally defiant stare, that if he had some chance to do it all over again, he would. There was no remorse whatsoever. McVeigh then lay on a gurney, staring up at a camera which broadcasted his execution back to Oklahoma, where over 200 victims or family members were watching. It looked like McVeigh was staring straight back at them. Well, that's it. Who did you think deserved the death penalty the most? And do you believe that it should still be around? Because in some states it's still legal. They still use different forms of it, which is pretty crazy. If you did like the video, please hit a big thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also, thank you guys so much for 500,000 followers on TikTok. Till then, I'll see you in the next one.